So for the past few weeks, I've kind of been on a little bit of a Wallace and Gromit binge. I've been working my way through the franchise, and I've finished most of everything. And I finally made my way to the most recent entry in the Wallace and Gromit franchise, which is Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Fowl. Now, I was a little bit skeptical going into this film for a few reasons. And the first being, I haven't been very impressed by or heard very good things about long-awaited sequels. I feel like they're usually letdowns. They very rarely live up to the original source material or the original entries in the franchise. At least that's my opinion. And so that had me a little bit worried going into this film because it's been a while since we've had a Wallace and Gromit film. And secondly, I was a little bit nervous about having a new voice actor for Wallace. Unfortunately, Peter Sallis passed away and retired before that, and so there was no chance of that voice being the same iconic Wallace voice that everybody knows. And so going into this film, having a new actor take over for the voice of Wallace kind of left me with some concerns. I usually get concerned whenever an iconic voice is recast because I find that voice actors very rarely are able to capture the essence of the original. Peter Sallis was Wallace, no ifs, ands, or buts. And I did notice that Wallace didn't quite sound like Wallace throughout this film, and it did distract me. But I think that Ben Whitehead did a good job. I think that it's very hard to live up to an iconic character voice, and it's very hard to capture the magic that the original had, but I think that Ben Whitehead did fine. It's a tall task, but he lived up to it as best as he could. I think it helps a lot as well that Ben Whitehead is basically like a Peter Sallis Wallace understudy because he's been around with Wallace and Gromit and he's been involved before. And so I think that really just helped that transition a little bit. As far as the film itself goes, I thought it was really good and I had a fun time with it. I love a story where a seasoned villain controls or manipulates or creates a new villain to work for them and to do their bidding. I really enjoyed having Feathers McGraw back to be this criminal mastermind that we know him to be and to just pull the strings in this story. And also, Wallace's invention gone wrong, Norbot, was a creepy villain in his own right. Aside from Feathers McGraw, we have a few other familiar faces who make appearances in Vengeance Most Fowl, including PC Macintosh from Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. I think it's very interesting that with this being the first real sequel in the Wallace and Gromit franchise, there are elements from the other Wallace and Gromit short films and feature-length films that are incorporated into this film, but not story elements. So that changes the way that a character like PC Macintosh, or in this case Chief Inspector Macintosh, would interact with a character like Wallace, because his interactions with him in The Curse of the Were-Rabbit are null and void. So it's very interesting to have this continuity that comes directly from The Wrong Trousers and sort of incorporates things from the other films, but not really. The third character that I recognize that made a cameo in this film is the farmer from Shaun the Sheep. I guess it's not all that surprising because it is the same world after all, and Shaun the Sheep himself did originate in Wallace and Gromit: A Close Shave, but I've never seen the farmer in the same project as Wallace and Gromit, so I thought that was cool. Overall, I did really enjoy this film. There are just a few little things that hold me back from immediately falling in love with it. The first one being that yes, Wallace's voice is different. It does still mostly sound like Wallace, but just that little bit of difference is throwing me off. That's something I'll get over though. The second one is a little bit concerning, but I guess it doesn't really have any bearing on the story itself. Wallace does not mention cheese or eat cheese in this entire film. And you might think that that's a silly thing for me to, critique this movie for, but it's been such an integral part of Wallace's character since his conception. The very first appearance that Wallace had was in a story about him not having cheese and then building a rocket to the moon to get cheese. And so it just feels like not having cheese be a part of his character as much in this film is kind of concerning, especially just given what we've known this character to be. And yes, cheese is seen on screen in this film and it is mentioned in this film, but it just feels weird to not have Wallace himself mention it or eat it. It just feels like a departure from his character a little bit, which is so weird to say. It's just cheese, but that's how important it is. It's like if he wasn't inventing. Those are the two things, you know? There's Gromit, there's cheese, and there's inventing. Those are the three things you need to have Wallace. But aside from that, I thought this was a great addition to the Wallace and Gromit franchise, and I would recommend checking it out. I think it's a fun time. I think it's a good film. It's not my favorite Wallace and Gromit film, but I wouldn't be shocked to know that it's somebody's. I will just always prefer Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit above any other Wallace and Gromit films, past, present, or future. That's partly nostalgia for me, but also I just love that film. I love everything about it. But yeah, I would recommend checking this film out. I think it's a good addition, and I think it's really worth your time. I will say you should probably watch The Wrong Trousers beforehand, just because that story goes into this one and you don't want to miss out on anything. You don't want to not know what's going on. If you have seen this film, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below. Let me know how it compares to the other Wallace and Gromit films for you. If you want to help me out here on YouTube, liking this video, commenting on this video, subscribing to the channel, or checking out some of my other videos, all those things help me grow the YouTube channel. And yeah, until next time, bye. Cheese.
This is amazingly accurate.